But these plants began to break up in the 50s and move. They started moving to suburban areas because they were afraid of union organizing. Coming out of World War II, after the war, there was a whole wave of strikes because during the war we had no strike clauses. The workers couldn't strike because striking would affect the war production. So as soon as the war was over, workers started striking everything, and the soldiers came home. And that's what set the groundswell for the passage of the Taft-Hartley Act, that ended up leading to the right to work states in the South and all that in 1947. So by the time you get to 53s, they start breaking up the plants, start building suburban plants, sending the plants, other places to try to minimize union power inside those plants. So that's what we went through in the 50s. And ever since then, in the 50s, we've been in a crisis in this city with overproduction, and companies moving and leaving. Some started to go south, others just closed altogether, and the city began to change. By the 1960s now, that's when I was able to get a job. 1958 was probably one of the worst years in the auto industry. That's when the Edsel was produced by Ford, which was the worst car ever produced in the auto industry. The massive Edsel came out. And I don't know if they sold 5 or 10 or 15 of them cars, but it was the worst one that ever came out. And but it kind of marked the point where most of the auto industry laid off everybody. And people didn't get picked back up until about 1962, after the Kennedy election and the early beginnings of the outbreak of the Vietnam War. Then auto production began to pick up. I got a job in 1963. I don't know how much culture you stay up on, but what was it? The Stylistics or one of those singing groups had a tune out in the late 50s called "Get a Job." Get a job, because you couldn't get one. So they had a tune called "Get a Job." Matter of fact, it was about 1963 when Smokey Robinson and them answered it after they started hiring. He said, "I got a job." Finally got a job. So the cultural movement kind of followed, the economic movement in the city. Well, when I got a job in 1963, I got a job. We were making the front ends and back ends for the Mustang. The new Mustang came out in 1964, and it sold for $1,500 brand new. $1,500 brand new. And that's when Wilson Pickett broke out with his song, Mustang Sally, because it was ruled as a woman's car, this new Mustang. So the 60s saw the development of work inside the shops expanding. Matter of fact, when I hired in I hired in the Ford in 1963, but I didn't last long. I lasted about 9 months and got fired. So I had to go to Dodge Main and get a job. See, back then, jobs were so plentiful. You could work day shift here, get fired or quit and go over here and work afternoons at the next plant. You could just pick your way. It was simply that easy. So when I hired in at the Dodge Main plant in 1964, they hired a whole shift at once. So 5,000 of us went in there together. The Dodge Main plant had 10,000 employees. They put a whole second shift on, hiring 5,000 people at a time. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of how massive hiring was and how lucrative things was at that period of time. No, Alonzo over there back hiding, he went into plants back there too. But anyway, that was the kind of the mood of the city during that period of time. What happened was that obviously the rest of these plants hadn't changed. We had all kind of discrimination inside the shop. You got hired, when I got hired at Dodge Main, I go in with a white buddy of mine. I end up in the foundry and he end up my foreman. Or I end up, in spot welding in the body shop and he end up in skilled trades. Discrimination was just that tough. You couldn't get the kind of positions that was held open mainly for blacks at a lot of these Chrysler and GM plants was real discriminatory. And that's what set the basis for us began organizing inside the shops. We began to do organizing work inside the factories after the rebellion. But I talked a little bit about that last night on the plenary, during the rebellion in 1967, when Detroit exploded like that. What happened, we learned a lesson that, when the city was put under curfew, if you got hungry, you couldn't get no food. You got sick, you can go to the hospital. But if you had a badge from Chrysler, Ford, or General Motors, you get through the Army line, the police line, the National Guard line, the state trooper line to take your butt to work. So the estimate that we made out of that was that at the point of production was the only place that we had any value in society. So we decided that we're going to start organizing inside these factories. And that's why we took up that challenge to organize and work in that period. So in a lot of ways, that's been the history of the city. That work we had to fight the company and the union. We developed, the union was so bad, we developed a slogan says the UAW means you ain't white. It was that bad. We had picket lines around Solidarity House and everything. We couldn't even get a conversation with them. We go up to try to talk to them about discrimination. They said the only discrimination that exists in the union is that you started. So anyway, we was just in a lockdown battle. We developed organizations in the factories to fight back. And we had to be careful. We learned some lessons about those organizations. We had to develop an organization that wasn't a caucus, that didn't follow union rules. Because if you develop an organization like that, then the rules of that organization alone shuts you down. I got fired in leading the Wildcat strike at that plant, and we decided to use my discharge as a calling card to build an organization called DRUM, which meant Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement. And what we decided was that we used it to say that you have declared war on us, and that's the only decision that you'll make. We'll decide the conditions of war, the time of the engagement, and where we're going to engage with, and we're going to decide all those things. So that freed us up from the constraints, of being boxed in under some of their rules. We're going to decide, we're going to fight you everywhere we can. And that became the way that we proceeded, to try to organize ourselves, and that's precisely what we did. We fought them everywhere. We followed labor reps home. They hired a couple of black labor reps, and they come in the plant, start firing people, and drive home in the black community. Me and Lazo, we locked and loaded and drove up to his house and parked in the driveway, wait for his ass to come home. You ain't gonna come in here and fire somebody and come back in the black community and live down there. And he called his wife and had his wife come out and beg him to please leave because he's scared he ain't gonna come home. We took on the battle. We won't messing with no grievance procedure. We messing with whatever we got to do to try to get this thing. We catch the Urban League giving Lynn Townsend, the CEO of Chrysler, an award. We went in there with picket signs, kicked over the damn tables and shit. You ain't gonna give him no damn award with the hell we catching in this thing. We decided where the battleground gonna be, not you. I ain't sitting up looking at no grievance procedure, waiting on you to WWP it after it gets a year and a half old. So then we took on that fight, and we began to build based on putting out flyers. Dodge Main was so big with 10,000 people. People on one end of the plant didn't know what was going on in the other end of the plant. So we decided what we needed is a newsletter. So we developed one little newsletter that we put out once a week. First day we go out to pass out the newsletter, the security guys come out taking pictures of the workers and gonna use them for discipline. So the high school kids, that little waistline over there, right there with the black shirt on, he was a high school kid, about 14 years old. The kids came out and said, listen, we'll go out and pass out the leaflets for you. They can't fire me because it'll be another 10 years if I'm old enough to have it. All right. So the kids came out and became the shock troops for us, and they passed out the flyers. And we finally what happened after about 9 weeks of putting out leaflets, workers just said, well, look, y'all, excuse my French, y'all talking shit, what you gonna do? It's time to do something. So we had to do something. So we decided we'd strike the plant. We didn't want to strike it right away. We had a series of things we were gonna do called testing the strength. We had look at the Dodge Main plant. Let me tell you a couple things about Dodge Main plant. When you come out of the back of the Dodge Main plant, They had 3 bars, 2 delicatessens, and a motel. As soon as you come out the plant, they had it set up so you can lose every dime you made before you get a week before you get a block away from the plant. They used to bring a Brinks truck out to the plant that had check cashing windows in it. And on Thursday night on the afternoon shift, when the young workers would come out for lunch, they had wives and girlfriends pulling up there trying to get the check before you got home with it. Give you some food to eat so you pass the check on and go back to work. But it was a real live situation. But we had about 100 people that used to go behind the bars in the alley, and they'd work one shift and drink another. Yeah. So they'd work 8 hours and drink 8 hours. So it was good for us because we had an automatic base. 100 folks in that alley all the time that we could count on for whatever we wanted to do. Those was our troops. So when we got ready to have rallies and things at the local, we go back and get our troops out of the alley, and we march down to the local hall. We surround them in the local hall and put forth resolutions and things like that. So we decided that we're going to, we weren't going to strike them right away, but one of the guys got excited and damn it called for a strike the next morning, and all the guys stormed out, and we're sitting there waiting. Everybody gone now. We're going to have to strike. We had a little coffee shop at that time that we used to run at night called the Ghetto Coffee Shop. And guys would be in there playing conga drums and drinking coffee and stuff all night. So we got those guys, and we had all the people around the newspaper. We had Inner City Voice, and we got in cars and drove out to the plant that morning. But the main thing we did, we took the conga drum players. We had conga drums playing in the coffee shop. We took the conga drum players with us out to the plant. And we lined them conga drums up at the plant gate and started passing out flyers and with the drums kicking and everything. And in a half-hour time, we had about 5,000 black workers lined up on the streets, that would refuse to go in. At that time, they had state troopers with high-powered rifles on top of the plant. The Hamtramck police and the Detroit police had us in a pincher movement. They're coming with them double-edged axe handles, and all our people were breaking off bars and beer bottles trying to figure out a way to fight. We were able to quickly get them in cars and take them down to the Solidarity House, which was the Union headquarters, and have a picket over there and one at Chrysler headquarters. So we were able to diffuse that battle that we were going to get slaughtered in. But at the same time, let me tell you that Chrysler Corporation didn't know what to do with this strike. They declared it to be an extra legal strike instead of illegal. So nobody got fired, They didn't know, they were scared, they didn't know what to do with it. And so what happened was that workers started coming from everywhere after they heard about drum. They came from the Eldon plant where Lonzo was. They came from Ford Roos. Everybody wanted to run. They wanted to run a revolutionary union movement in their plant. We couldn't handle that. We told them, listen, we have paper and we have ink. We have typesetting equipment and we got a mimeograph machine. And we have some young kids that'll help you distribute it. You write your own flyer. We'll help you print it. And we'll let the kids help you pass it out. We cannot handle all these different organizations coming at us. And I want to explain to you that because I think it's a difference between a movement and an organization. A movement breaks out spontaneously, and that's what happened. These movements broke out at all these factories and even other workplaces like Detroit News. And the organizations are always running around trying to catch it. So I want you to understand, I think it's an important lesson to know the movements are spontaneous, they break. You got to be prepared for them when you see them so you can take advantage of them. But that's the way history poses itself for us. But anyway, those movements grew in that sense, and our movement went on. We developed whatever we could, but by the time we get to the late 70s, the auto plants began to collapse. I think we had the collapse of the Chrysler plant in 79. That's when Chrysler Corporation applied for the loan guarantees for the government. And ever since then, brothers and sisters, it's been one decline and collapse after the other. A good 2 years, a bad 3 years. Good 2, bad 3. And that's been the history of this auto industry. One thing happened in this last collapse last year. Well, this crisis was so deep this time that when Chrysler and GM went into bankruptcy, they both came out partially nationalized. The government, or we own a portion of GM and Chrysler. And I want to tell you all that because the government don't seem to want to let you know.
Yeah.
But part of GM and Chrysler is yours, you know. That's important because when something new happens, it gives us an opportunity to think of new things. You know, I couldn't have told people about, or if I told them about the nationalization of the company a few years ago, it'd been harder to believe. Now they can. They only partially nationalized, and our position really is that the whole thing should be nationalized and taken and run it in the interest of the workers and its communities, and not these CEOs, you know, who do nothing.
That's right.
They got a book coming out called Overhaul in the fall by I shouldn't have mentioned it because I can't think of his name. But he was one of these guys that helped take over GM. And he talked about what the culture was like at GM. He said the CEO of General Motors rides down to the headquarters with his car and parks it in the private garage and have it automatically washed, and then catches the private elevator up to his private office and close his private door and sit there on his private ass all the rest of the day and don't talk to no damn body. And that's his work.
Yeah.
And he gets millions of dollars for doing that. He don't do a damn thing. And he said when they got ready to bring the volatility package to the government, he blamed everything on the union and the economy. GM ain't done nothing wrong. You know, I mean, that's the kind of absurd stuff that happens with these CEOs. They don't do nothing. And the people that do nothing in society are the ones that get awarded the most. You know, they run around talking about I'm in mining, and they sitting on, what does the movie say, on the 99th floor of some office building, is talking about he in mining. Fingernails ain't been dirty in his goddamn life, and he talking about he in mining. He ain't nothing. So that's the kind of character of these clowns that we work for. And that's the kind of history of struggle that we done had here in this city. And that's the kind of crisis that we're confronted with now. So that's what you see. You see a city here on the verge of collapse. We got 40 square miles of empty land in Detroit. We got enough empty land in Detroit to hold all of Boston, Massachusetts, or all of San Francisco. That much vacant land. And it's all because of the blighted factories and some of the stuff we did ourselves. You know, we used to have a thing in Detroit called Devil's Night. And we'd wait till, you know, when all the workers started losing them houses in 79, that was before they had all these second mortgages and shit. You lost your house, you lost it. So the only thing guys could do was go out and torch it, burn that sucker down, and we'd wait till the Devil's Night, right, the night before Halloween, and the whole city would go up on fire. You burn the house down so you could collect at least some insurance money for the house. And that's what became Devil's Night. And everybody run around acting like, why is this city burning like this? Damn, you should stop and ask somebody. Hell, they used to have people, they'd fly reporters in from Japan and all over the world to come in to see Detroit burn. You know, I don't know if you know the spectacle we had about Devil's Night. It was it had national prominence in that sense. But that was the root cause of it was material conditions, that people didn't want to have to get with that loss and you could burn it. Then folks started driving their cars down there, torching them when they lose. You know, and the beat goes on. But that's the struggles we've had here. That's kind of where we got to where we are now. That's the lessons that we've had in history that we've grown out of. And we stand here today trying to figure out how to ground ourselves on various fronts of struggle. We organize ourselves on various fronts. Right here is Sister Gwen and Sister Ann out of the welfare rights movement. They organized on the welfare front, on the poverty front. All these old retirees I was pointing out to you, we organizing with on the healthcare struggle. We got retirees for single payer. Look at all these these healthcare shirts we got in here, man. Get these people, man. Yeah, that's our call. We fight for single payer national healthcare, and we ain't taking no stuff. You know, so that's our battle front. So various fronts of struggle, you know, is how this thing got to go. You can't fight on every front.
No.
A person that tries to do everything does nothing. You know, I think how the Chinese parallel go, you like a man with 10 fingers trying to solve 10 problems, and you're sitting here paralyzed.
Yeah.
One fly under each finger. That ain't the way you kill a fly. Damn it, you let 9 go and kill them one at a time.
Yeah.
And that's the way you gotta carry on these fights. Figure out which front you want to fight on and throw everything you got on that front till you can make a breakthrough. And stay with it. Don't give up. Stay there, learn the lessons. Don't get tired and frustrated. One of the things that happens all the time, and I always use this quote from Ingalls. He says, "What childish innocence it is to use one's own impatience as a theoretically convincing argument." You ain't got no right to get tired.
That's right.
You stay in the fight and stay there, because what happens most of the time, by the time people rise up, the revolutionaries done got tired and went on. And ain't nobody to leave. So you stay in the fight. Well, anyway, those are lessons we done learned here in the city, y'all. I hope that's helpful some kind of way.
So I think if folks have some questions, I think General might be willing to answer.
Sure.
So I don't know if folks have and that was a lot.
Yeah, that was great.
Really
I'll
helpful
start.
to hear about our history. So, all right, Ann.
As a Detroiter, as a native Detroiter myself, it was a little bit surprising for me to hear that Detroit started out with so many single-family homes.
Yeah.
That's what because if you guys could see it now,
Yeah.
there used to be blocks. We have this one block that's called West Grand Boulevard, and it was grand.
Yeah.
We had lawns that went on for like quarter of an acre before you even got to the house. Now you go down this street and it's gaps. I mean, huge gaps. 3, 4. We talking about 6, 8 bedroom homes, just gone.
Yeah.
Just gone. And the other thing that you said that really struck me was about the whole blight. They blame that on us. The Devil's Night didn't come until much later. That whole white flight thing that came along with the riot in '64. That's what started the blight. Businesses were abandoned, and a lot of that stuff, like Jen said, is still there, y'all. It's still there, making our neighborhoods just look horrible.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, brother.
I'm in Chicago.
Okay.
I'm actually from. We won't even go into that.
Philadelphia by
Philadelphia by Chicago back to Philadelphia to West Virginia.
Okay, Chicago.
Okay.
We actually arrived with Dog on Sunday, and
I see. Okay.
Monday we actually took a ride.
Oh
and,
my gosh.
I actually got physically sick.
I see. Okay.
I wanted to throw up.
Yeah.
To see you could tell that they were beautiful homes at one time. And the sidewalks that were covered with grass. You couldn't even see the sidewalk anymore. I actually got physically sick.
I know.
And I can personally speak about Philadelphia. I don't know what the difference is.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about is, like when they came in, when North Philly and Kensington mostly.
Yeah.
I'm from Kensington.
Oh wow. Okay.
And,
right.
to see it now.
Yeah.
It just reminded me back home.
Okay.
And it reminded me of my grandfather, who had no legs, and he still did work until the day he died.
Right.
And it reminded me of him always saying that it doesn't matter about race, it doesn't matter about color. It was like the white flight that in Kensington. That's what exactly happened. The jobs went over to wherever they went to.
Yeah.
We made the first Slinky, if you remember playing with Slinky.
Yeah.
Candy canes were made in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Clothing was made in Kensington.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, like back in '80,
Okay.
I believe it was '85, '86.
Yeah.
I was a bad boy, so
That's all right.
I didn't get fired. I actually got locked up. So I went a little further than you did. But anyway, getting out of prison and then seeing the white people flight,
I see, okay,
and back then it was, and I hate to say this, it was an all-white neighborhood, and as soon as the first black person moved, they all ran, and my grandfather stayed in Kensington until the day he died. He said, nobody will push me out.
Right.
He was a rough guy, but anyway, to see Detroit and to remind me of Kensington, it's the same. I mean, it's not the abandoned lot. Well, it is actually abandoned lots. What they do and what the difference between Detroit and Philadelphia is they knocked our buildings down.
I see. Okay.
Because of the Devil's Night. Them setting it on fire and stuff like that.
Right.
But they didn't knock down the houses.
Yeah.
And it's sitting there. And what makes me mad about this whole thing, and I'll wrap this up. I know I have a few minutes.
Go ahead, brother.
What makes me mad about the whole thing is these are places that they could put these homeless people in.
Sure.
We went to Copland, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Copland, and there was right next to the firehouse.
Yeah.
There's a building there.
Right.
And the walls are beautiful. There's walls there. There's no windows. And it's an abandoned building, but there's walls there. And this is a place that you can actually fix up.
That's right.
And you can move people in there. And it really made me mad that I never knew. I was dumb as a kid. I wasn't street smart as a kid. I always thought that I was always going to be provided for. I was always provided for.
Okay. All right.
And I always never thought that I'll never get homeless like that person. But I didn't know the story of that person. Where the water was cut off and then they took your house, or the electric was cut off and they took your house. And when I came here, it really opened my eyes and it physically made me sick. And I'm going to take this back and I'm going to talk to my group and I'm going to see what I can do.
All right.
Not only for your community, because we're going in West Virginia, we're going through the same thing with the miners.
Man,
That's right.
We saw it in West Virginia, y'all. It was like he said, it made him sick. It was devastating.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they do the same thing. It started out to where you could only go to the script place.
Right.
If you worked for one company, that's the only place. And whenever you lost your job, they'd take your house because it was their house. And it made me physically sick. And I'm sorry it's happening to you, but thank God you guys are okay. But we need to worry about the other people that are okay.
Certainly. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, brother. Yeah, Chris.
Janelle, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the role or the significance of leadership development in these struggles as you've gone through them, and what it took to develop leaders. And I know that you've shared stories in the past about police actually would come and pick you up right before riots would start to make sure you were out of the way as other people went into motion.
Right,
I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to this.
Sure. Listen, let me tell you this. I haven't made probably an independent decision in the last 40 years. They've always been collective. So I don't take individual responsibility for all the things I do, because two heads are better than one. And I was fortunate enough as a youngster to join. We had a little group when I was on college campus called Uhuru that was Swahili for Freedom. And it's out of that little group where we decided to make decisions to take on things. And it's so important to have a constant leadership development core that you got to work on all the time. I can jump all the way up to today. You see, I got Mitch and Waistline and Lonzo over here right now, and Charles. We decided to take on this struggle around healthcare. And in order to do that, we have 2 meetings a week we have to do. We got a meeting at Local 22 called Retirees for Single Payer, and then we meet Thursday down at the church and go over theoretical things and theoretical questions so we can tighten up our understanding of this world and strengthen our ability to go back to the meeting on Monday. And we have to do that as consciously as possible. We can't do one without the other. We got to have the theoretical struggle. But the struggle is the school itself. You got to study, but you got to struggle, because out of the struggle becomes the real educational lessons that you apply to things that you study. And that way it becomes real and live to you, and you really got to hold on to them. We used to have, one of the problems we had back in the 60s was that we'd have 35 workers over at the Unicom office ready to study Marxism as a science and couldn't find nobody that could teach it. We spent money we sent for James Foreman and everybody else that run around talking about they was Marxists, and would bring them in here to try to study. They didn't know how to teach nothing. And we put them up. I mean, we give them a place to stay, something to eat, come in here and teach. And we had to end up running them out of town. See?
I heard that.
So the struggle for education was primary for us, battling to try to learn. Especially after the organization split and the little intellectual section left us, and we sitting up there looking at each other, we got to figure out how we're going to fight our way out of this. So it's indispensable that you keep a leadership core and you constantly study and reevaluate, the work that you're doing so we can keep on struggling and fighting straight. And that's really important. I was fortunate enough, Chris, to get through a lot of those early battles with the police. I didn't have too many awards, man. Most of the things I've done, I think I went to jail every year of my life from 1963 to 1971. And I finally met somebody who told me to sit my big butt down and study. So it ain't like you learn. And in the '60s left us with two type of people. We were talking about it earlier. It left us with those that fought and refused to think, and those that thought and refused to fight. So we had two kind of people.
Yeah.
One of them sitting up talking stuff all the time, thinking, and the other one was fighting all the time, ain't got sense enough to study. It took us 20 years to try to make thinkers into fighters and fighters into thinkers. And when we get that dialected, then we got something to work with. But that was the kind of past we had. And that's why you got to really fight for theory all the time. You got to fight for theory, do your theoretical study, and then carry it out and sum up those practices that you do and keep an ongoing, steady leadership working, because we're going to be in for a long, difficult battle, and it's going to take time. We got to have a protracted outlook on this thing, Chris, okay. Yes, brother.
My name's Bill. I'm from a healthcare union in Philly.
Okay.
And I really appreciate the history.
Okay,
But the struggle continues. I
Yes.
think that, in my opinion, the issue facing us, one of the most important things right now is getting a real healthcare system, real single payer system.
No question.
And we support it. And I'm just curious as to how is the current leadership of the UAW responding to your push for single payer?
Well, listen. Let me say. The leadership is too new. We just got a new leadership last week. Middlefinger left. We had a president called Middlefinger. He just retired, took his butt back somewhere where we belong. So we got a brand new leadership that just come on.
What's your ring finger?
Yeah. So we got Bob King now, who's the new president, and we figured that he's going to be on our side. But of course, we don't care whose side he's on, because one of the structures that we got is that we all belong to retiree chapters. The retirees are the leading section of every local union. We outnumber the active membership 2-1. We got 800,000 retired UAW workers, and we belong to locals every week, and those retirees meet once a month. So we're going back into them retiree chapter meetings every month, carrying out our fight we are fighting for single payer, and we use the simple little thing that Chrysler and GM workers lost their optical and their dental. This current bill that they got don't give them back their optical and their dental. And the only thing we're not going to get it at the bargaining table, and the only way we're going to get optical and dental is that we get single payer national health care 676. And we're carrying that fight back every month back into our retiree meetings, mobilizing retirees for this fight. We got an agenda already set out that we going after one of these representatives every month. Each month we're going after another one, and we want to get them on board for 676, and that's our marching orders. So in a lot of ways, I don't care what Bob King do. but we believe he's going to be on our side. The resolution that just got passed last week at the UAW convention, right here in this building, was this, it says that it endorses Obama's stuff, but it said the real solution is single payer. So as long as it got that in there, it give us some room to maneuver, and that's kind of where we at, though, brother. Thank you. But middle finger's gone, and that's a victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're gonna. Yours will be the last question, then we'll
Okay.
wrap up.
This is a quick question. Gen 676, is that
Conyers bill.
The Conyers bill?
Yeah, yeah.
The reason I asked it, you know, it kind of hit me because he came through the Human Relations Commission over in Hamtramck, which I'm a Human Relations Commissioner. We had him go to our council.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they gave support.
Oh, okay, all right, great. Yeah, that's good. That's it. That's the one. Well, that's good. We needed that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Ain't gonna let no company turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no company turn me round. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round.